Hope you're having a good day. So today I'm going to be making the Anemo and Geo Sigil from Genshin Impact. They look a bit like wax seals, but they reminded me of thumbprint biscuits, which I've seen before. These little biscuits that you press your thumb into before you bake them, and then you fill it with jam. And as it bakes, it kind of sets into that position, and you have like a little well where the jam sits. So I thought I could adapt one of them recipes and just shape it into a different shape that looks more like a wax seal. I've got my new food colourings I ordered recently, so I've dyed one batch turquoise and one batch orange, and then I made this egg white and sugar icing which sets up super hard. It's kind of like royal icing, but I make it my own special way, and I just use that for the markings on top. It took me a while to get right. I actually initially tried making a stencil that I could cover with powdered sugar, but this method that I use here works a lot better with the royal icing kind of mixture. So the recipe for these biscuits is actually super simple if you want to go for the most basic version. It's just butter, icing sugar, egg yolk and flour, but I added some salt and vanilla extract in there just to give it a bit of flavour. So first you're going to start off by creaming together 135 grams of butter with 50 grams of icing sugar. If you don't have icing sugar, you can just blend up some granulated sugar in a food processor. I didn't have any, so that's what I did for this recipe, and they turned out fine. So you want to make sure you cream your butter and your sugar together really well. This is going to incorporate a lot of air into the batter and make it super smooth and give you a better texture for your final biscuit. So once it's properly done, it should look like this, a lot lighter than what it started. Once we've got to this stage, we're going to add in half an egg yolk, a pinch of salt and half a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And I then just mix that together until it was thoroughly combined. At this point in the recipe, as I was going to make two colours, I decided to split the batter here before I added in the flour. We want to mix the biscuits as little as possible after we've added the flour, because otherwise we're going to generate a lot of gluten and make our biscuit too chewy. So I separated the batter into two bowls and then dyed it. First turquoise for one colour for the Anemo sigil, and then a kind of golden brown for the Geo Sigil. This just takes a bit of time and patience to try and get the colour right, and the colour will change after you add the flour, so it's kind of a bit of a guessing game. You can always alter it a little bit afterwards, but again you want to do as little as possible once you've added the flour. So I mixed these together and got the right colours, and then added half of the flour into each bowl, which is 82 grams of plain flour into each bowl, and then just mix that together just as little as possible. We want to keep this nice and short, and put it into cling film to rest in the fridge. So though I put my dough in the fridge for this recipe, I found out later on it's actually not necessary. When you're shaping the biscuits into the wax stamp shape, I found it was a lot easier if the dough was a bit warm. It prevented it cracking and allowed it to be more malleable, so you don't actually need to do this step. Either way, once both doughs were done, I split them into 18-gram portions, rolled them into balls, and then placed them on my nice new baking tray. I found the easiest way to mould them into the wax seal shape was to first cover it with a piece of cling film. This just prevents our pressing implement from sticking to the dough. I found the blunt end of a pestle to be the best for this, so I just used this to kind of press it into the wax seal shape, and if you support it with your fingers on the side, it gives these uneven curves onto the edge, which kind of makes it look more like a wax seal, I think. I just repeated this with every single cookie, and then placed them in the fridge to cool down for about 15 minutes. Doing this should prevent them from spreading in the oven and help us retain that shape that we've just designed. Once cooled, I baked them in an oven preheated to 160 degrees Celsius for 12 minutes. There's one final step to ensure we get the perfect shape, and that's once they come out of the oven, when they're still hot, you want to take the back of a spoon and just press in the centre. This will have puffed up slightly during the baking, and we can press it back down to ensure that we get that nice clean shape, or the nice clean edges. Once I've done that, I just allow the cookies to cool completely for about 30 minutes to an hour while I prepare the icing. So the way I make my icing is I put a pan on the stove, fill it with a little bit of water and bring that to the boil. I then place a glass bowl on top, add one egg white and a quarter of a teaspoon of cream of tartar, and then just whisk it until it starts to bubble. Once it's got nice and bubbly, I then add in the 60 grams of caster sugar and continue to beat it over the heat until it becomes smooth and glossy. So what's happening here is the cream of tartar is helping the air bubbles in the meringue stabilise themselves, so it's easier for you to build up these soft peaks. And then because we're heating it over a bain-marie, we're one, sterilising the egg whites so it's safe to eat, and then secondly, we're kind of dissolving the granulated sugar and make it nice and smooth so it's not granular at all, super smooth. The other benefit of this icing is that once you've piped it on the cookie and allowed it to air dry, it becomes rock hard. So you can stack the cookies on top of each other and you don't have to worry about them messing up the design by smushing together. It's perfectly solid. So I've got a piping bag here with the smallest tip I could find, and I've filled that with my icing. Then I had to pipe by hand the designs onto each cookie. So I've got some footage of my first tries here, they're not the greatest. You can kind of see the way I'm doing it. If I could give you any advice, I'd say take it slow and careful. I put a Myths and Legends podcast on in the background, it's really nice to listen to. And yeah, just kind of thought in advance of how I was going to do it. Try to make it as symmetrical as possible, and just practice, you'll eventually get there. And these could be better, but I'm kind of happy with how they turned out. With the Anemo sigil specifically, there's some kind of thinner and thicker bits, and the way I achieved this was just by slowing down my piping action to allow the icing to build up for the thicker bits, and then pulling it faster and less pressure to get the thinner bits. You can also go back over the top with a wet finger and press down on the icing to kind of smooth it out a little bit. If there's any tips that are poking up, you can press them back down. With all my icing complete, I just allowed them to air dry, and I got the final product you can see here. Okay, so I'll do a little taste test on camera. You can see the first Anemo cookie there. Hopefully it focuses. It's kind of a little bit dark here actually. You can see there. I might put a little logo up here so you can see what it's actually supposed to look like. It looks pretty good. And the icing, you can see me like rub my fingers across it, right? And it's not breaking at all. Can you hear that? Yeah, it's super hard. And I'll give it a try. Yeah, so it's buttery and smooth. They've been left out for one night now. This is the next day. They're still fine. These weren't in an airtight container. I actually don't want to do that to begin with because it won't let the icing sugar dry. So keep them out of an airtight container for about 12 to 24 hours until the icing's dried, and then you can pop them in an airtight container for longer storage. Yeah, the cookie's super smooth and buttery. It's kind of like a shortbread biscuit. That's the best way I could probably explain it. It tastes like a shortbread, but it's not got that crunchy texture. It's a bit smoother. Yeah, kind of melts in the mouth. Take a bite out of the Geo Sigil as well. This is the one I really like. I think it's my favourite out of the two. Just the colour and the design. I quite like the geometric design. I'll give this a try. They're the same flavour. I'm just going to eat it anyway because I want to. But you could definitely change the flavours up because we already split the batter into two. We have the blue and the orange. You could flavour this like orange blossom would be really good for this. Or what other Geo flavours? Like maybe coffee or some kind of nut. Coffee and walnut would be good. And then for this, maybe I'm just thinking off the top of my head, like blueberry, maybe? Or what's another blue colour? Mint, maybe peppermint or something, that'd be kind of cool. Yeah, so I give this one a try as well. The icing's good as well because it has got a bit of a crunch as you bite through it, which is a nice little textural addition there. So I hope you enjoyed this recipe. I think these are super cool, like quite a cool party gift. Eventually after all these lockdowns we can go out to parties again. That'd be a good one for your Genshin Impact fans. But as always, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.